decided not to, because my current obsession is my slushy cups that I got from Amazon, or you pop in them and they're you freeze them and they're a cheaper, not quite as good version of a frozen Coke, but they don't cost $5 and, you don't have to go out of the apartment to get them. So
Mhm.
I regardless of what the instructions say, the best way to use them is to fill them up, put them in the freezer for like 45 minutes, and then, you squish them all up and then they're good. And so I decided today that I could only fill them up once we had started recording so that they will be done when we are done recording, and that I couldn't have any
Uh,
until I had put the laundry away today and done the podcast. So that is my TREAT that is waiting for me at the end of this, such hard work of talking for half an hour or an hour or however long we talk.
what I'm hearing is that no matter where we are actually in the discussion, at exactly 41 minutes from now, we'll be done recording.
No, I put them in the freezer before I came and asked you if I should put the dog in his CRATE. So they are well
Ah.
on their way. So no matter what state they're in when we are done, I will be quite happy. But I definitely use them as a tool to function today because that didn't seem to be happening on its own. So, you know,
Hmm.
little little bribe never hurt anybody, especially me.
Motivation is motivation, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of which, the DOG is, well, the dog. I guess I don't need to spell everything, but he is. he's
THE space DOG space IS space
yes,
RIGAT space OV. Okay, I'll stop.
yeah. He is, but it's amazing what he keys in on that I don't expect him to, because there are definitely times when we will be talking when I can hear him stand up and it's like, oh yeah, because that kind of sounded like an end or something.
Mm.
And so, yeah, and he definitely knows when I'm likely to forget him, because I'll get up and I will go to take a bathroom break or whatever. And I will come back and he is standing up with his face like pressed into the bars like a lifer, like because I forgot him
Oh.
once. I left him one time. Just like the one time I accidentally dumped his water bowl on top of him. Now, every time he eats his food and I go to grab his water, he still keeps his face in the bowl, but he scoots his body around like 180 degrees so I can't spill water on him because I did it once.
He holds on to the screw ups so hard and then takes forever to try. He is so traumatized. Our poor little guy.
Poor little guy. Poor little guy. But yeah, but he has discovered the beauty of ear rubs this past couple of weeks. So he's been hanging around me so that I'll give his ears a rub, and that's pretty cute too.
He has such soft, floppy ears.
Mm-hmm. So bribery works for him as well as it works for me.
Doesn't work super great on me, but you know, vague threats do. If you don't get this done, what? Something's gonna happen. Well, all right. I can imagine a lot of terrible things, so I'm gonna get this done.
Something will happen. It'll be unpleasant.
I don't like unpleasant things. All right.
No, unpleasant things are not great.
Hmm. Now, speaking of some unpleasant things, we have some unpleasant things to talk about on today's episode. Shall we jump right into it and make a podcast?
Yeah, fine. Let's make a podcast.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Gifted Kid, Messy Adult, a neurodiversity podcast, the show where potential went to die. I'm one of your hosts, Ellie Michaels. I use she, her,
I am your other host, Jessica Michaels. I use she, they.
and today we are talking about ableism.
Wah wah.
And we're going to talk about it without swearing.
That definitely is the challenge. Yeah, and this came about because I was talking with somebody who is very smart, a very smart person, who knows lots of things about lots of things. And at some point in the conversation, he said, it is impossible for someone to be that energetic for 30 minutes and be too disabled to hold a job.
Uh-huh.
And he was basing this on essentially saying somebody who can hold it together and have be a good conversationalist for half an hour or put on a smiley face for half an hour could not also be unable to work outside the home. And it's one of those situations where I wasn't surprised, but I was still disappointed. Like sometimes you just hope against hope that sometimes some of the good information has wheeled its way in there, and then you know and here's an old Chicago Bears reference for people is then it turns out they were who you thought they were, and that made one sports fan out there very happy, either Arizona Cardinals or Chicago Bears fan, that reference, but I'm gonna leave it in, or you're gonna leave it in because it makes me happy. But so what are
Sorry,
we
that was the
talking
sound
about?
of that going over my head.
So what is your understanding, or what do you remember from when I say ableism? What does that term mean to you?
It generally means applying your own experience of life to other people,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in the case of physical fitness or disability or mental fitness or disability. It's assuming that because this is my experience, that person must be having the same one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
my legs work great. That person in a wheelchair looks like they have both of their legs. So surely they're just being lazy
Mm-hmm.
because that's what
Yeah.
legs do.
It's any type of discrimination or social prejudice, excuse me. Ableism is any type of discrimination or social prejudice against people with disabilities based upon the belief that people with expected, typical quote unquote normal abilities are better. It's definitely rooted in the idea that disabled people require fixing and that people are defined by their disability, but also, as you rightly pointed out, this idea of we assume what somebody should and shouldn't be able to do based upon our own perceptions
Uh-huh.
is is an insidious form of ableism. And ableism can be turned on ourselves. There's also internalized ableism. And all of these things are negative and are things that we're constantly fighting against, again, no matter where you fall on the neurodiversity spectrum, or whether you have additional disabilities. It's something that I don't think we talk about as much as things like racism and sexism and homophobia and all of these things that are also bad. Ableism is their cousin, falls right into the same vein. um and it's frustrating. It is frustrating. I mean, what is there a story or an example or something that you can think of when it comes to ableism in your life, either internalized or kind of the standard externalized ableism?
Oh, bunch. Um, I mean, for one very easy example, ever since I got on this very weird and physically debilitating and wildly expensive autoimmune medication, I am all of a sudden in my 30s allergic to peanuts. This has never been a thing. I've never been allergic to any kind of food ever in my life. I hate raw tomatoes, but that's a taste and texture thing. But the last three times that I've eaten peanuts, and the last time was accidental, I barfed for 5 hours.
It was gross. It was
Just, I
not
mean,
good.
like, past the point of there's nothing left in there, past the point of that's just bile, past the point, just
0 out of 10.
throat destroyed, no voice the next day, burst blood capillaries all over my face from the strain. Um,
You were
and if that's
throwing
not
up from your
something,
toes. You were throwing up from your toes, which is
yeah,
something I've never
yeah,
witnessed before and choose to honestly never witness again. It
I
was
went I
it
went
was
down half a
terrifying.
shoe size. Like,
Mm-hmm. It was gross.
um, yeah. And if you're somebody who's never had an allergic reaction to a food, that wouldn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But you can have French fries from Burger King and they use peanut oil. Well, yeah, it's peanut oil. It seems to be the actual peanut itself that has to hit me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
oh, the Halloween candy is out right now.
Like reading on Reddit and things, you hear stories of relatives like, oh, the mom says they're allergic to, to whatever, but I'm going to sneak it into their food to prove that they're just being like, and I know someone in my life that I am pretty sure would do that. Um,
Hmm.
and it is horrifying. I'm so glad that none of my immediate family has any type of allergies but that, happened. I think it might happen a lot with parents and kids too. Like if you are a child who, because again, as you said, people know their personal experience. So, if you've ever, the closest you might ever, if this has never happened to you, think about being a kid and maybe was there a time that you were sick or a time that you were injured and your parents just weren't buying it. It was a bad day, or, maybe you'd cried wolf a little too hard before, or you didn't want to go, whatever it is. But I think every kid has a story of, I was sick, I was injured, and my parents didn't believe me. And that is as close as I can think of the experience of ableism to feel like when, if you're somebody who hasn't experienced it. And it is frustrating, but it's something that happens in degrees and you can catch yourself. Like maybe, if you are going by somebody who's seated in a disability preferred seating area and they don't look disabled, they
Hmm.
look okay.
They have an
Or
invisible disability.
yeah, or somebody who is in a wheelchair but is also ambulatory. A ton of wheelchair users are ambulatory wheelchair users, meaning they don't use their wheelchair full time. So it's, oh, well, if you can walk, why do you need that wheelchair? Those are examples of ableism. Um, it is anything from arguing against compliance with disability laws from the ADA, like, oh, why does that store, have to, they were doing fine and then somebody sued them because they couldn't get in the door. It's those types of reactions against adherence to policies like ADA policies, those are ableist. Um, it's also things though like segregating students with disabilities into different schools is
Hmm.
ableist. And this is something that is of discussion right now is should kids with learning disorders and physical disabilities and mental disabilities, should they be present in the mainstream classroom or should we segregate them? That's what that word is, segregating. Should we institutionalize them full time? Should they not participate? Because it is more expensive and it is costlier, to have mainstreamed children. But that is ableist, not in having accessibility in mind when it comes to building buildings. But it can also be things like, hey, I planned this super awesome group outing for the whole team. And to get in the building, there's a step up. Okay.
Hmm.
That can be an example of ableism because what if you have a work team, you're assuming that everybody on your work team can handle that step. That's it. And that might be the case, but it also might be the case that somebody on your team has a physical challenge with steps and feels like they need to go along with the group outing and can't verbalize that need, you
Hmm.
know it could be, for my gifted and neurodivergent and autistic and ADHD things. It could be, oh, we have a required social event at work and it starts at 6. That sounds fun, right? Doesn't that sound fun, Ellie?
Well, I mean, when we're talking about invisible disabilities is kind of what we're touching on here. Uh, Saying that the work outing starts at 6 is assuming that the person you're talking to has the energy and the spoons,
Mm-hmm.
which is, it's a well-known enough theory. I'm not going to go into it. That
We're gonna do an episode on it. I promised a listener we would do an episode on it, so we're going to at some point, but not today.
okay, as long as we touch on the forks part too.
Yes.
Um, that's assuming that the person has the physical and mental and emotional capacity to go do more stuff after work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're a high masking neurodivergent adult, after 8 hours of work, after 8 hours of harsh lights and loud noises and unpredictable people and weird smells, and having to smile constantly and remember to understand the meta context behind the words and not just the words, you might be completely all done.
Mm-hmm.
You might have no more energy, and one more interaction like that, it's not necessarily that you just can't do it. It's that you might be so exhausted that you say or do something out of distress that then endangers your career,
Mm-hmm.
which, when you live in a capitalist system where you have to pay for housing and food and
Mm-hmm.
water and healthcare, losing your career is an act of violence against you. That's endangering your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and it's such a simple term, ableism, but it's everything from, not um, not using, building a website and making it inaccessible, or not making a point to make it accessible to screen readers. That's an example of ableism. Eugenics is also an example of ableism. Mass murder of disabled people in Nazi Germany, that's ableism. So it's one of those things that has so many implications that it can be easy to dismiss when you hear somebody say, oh, something is ableist, because I think right now we're so fried and so burned from all of the things that are happening and these assaults that are coming in from everywhere. It just seems like one more thing. But I'm thinking of, because sometimes the assumptions that are ableist seem positive, like our gifted, obviously gifted kids, something we're super super familiar with on the show. But saying that somebody is gifted, so they must be able to do X, like, oh, they're so smart, of course they could handle, making, they know better than to say that stupid thing in public, because they're gifted, they're so smart, they're
Mhm.
so smart, of course they can make friends, or they're so smart, of course they know how to send a simple email. Those kind of statements are ableist too, assuming that because somebody has ability in one area, assuming then that they have ability in another area, and that anything else is a moral failing or is laziness, or whatever. That is ableism. I think some of the most insidious ableism is internalized ableism.
Yep.
And I've got, one that I use as an example is, I've been a coach, a neurodiversity coach for several years now. And I know, and a public speaker, and I know a very important part of running a small business like this is to reach out. It's to connect with people on LinkedIn, send a little message that says, hi, I'm a neurodiversity speaker, and do you hire speakers at your organization? And sending that message over and over. And that is something that most people could probably do in their sleep. Okay.
Mhm.
That's certainly something that I can do. And it's my business. And I care deeply about my business. So, of course, I'm going to take an hour a day and send out those messages, right?
Mhm.
Because if I don't, then it must mean that I don't care, you
Clearly.
know? And why would I hire somebody to do that? Because it's something so simple. I can do it. So I'm going to, right? I know I need to, so I'm going to do it, correct?
Of course.
Because anybody who cares about their business, anybody who's an adult, like, and I can do amazing things. Of course, it doesn't even take thinking. Of course, I can send out these messages that's so important to my business because building this business is my dream, right?
Hmm.
Could not for the life of me get myself to send out these stupid messages. And every day I would wake up and be like, I'm going to do it today. It's an hour blocked on the calendar. I'm going to do it. Didn't do it. That time would come about and I would either block it out or forget it, or it would just seem like there was fire between me and the computer. It wasn't like I didn't want to do it. It's like doing it was dangerous. It was the same. Trying to get myself to do that was like throwing myself into a bonfire, just where every part of your body is screaming, no, this is a terrible idea. Don't do this. This is horrible. And every day I would wrestle with myself with this. And every time I would spend a ton of money meeting with business advisors saying, great, you got a great business plan. All you need to do is this. And I would say, oh, that's perfect. All I need to do is this. And I can do that because it's so simple. And I just couldn't do it. And the guilt and the shame and the, well, maybe this isn't really my dream. Of course, I'm not as good as people think I am, because if I was, surely I would be able to do this. And just the spirals and the spirals. And then it meant, well, if I can't do this, well, then clearly I'm not as smart as people think I am. And, all these people who think I could do these amazing things, I've got them fooled. They're wrong. And I'm going to be discovered. And all of this shame. And every day I was going to neurodivergent people saying, well, that is internalized ableism. And, just because you
That
can't get your brain and body to do something, that is not a judgment against you. We just have to figure out how to work with what your brain wants to do. And we got to get rid of the guilt and the should. We don't use that S word here. But
physician, heal thyself.
inside and behind closed doors, that's what I was doing. And so I finally woke up and realized, like, I have been running this business as if I am totally able brained and bodied, you know, that I don't have chronic illnesses that zap my energy, that I don't have ADHD and executive dysfunction that I'm fighting against constantly, so all of these things, it finally took me to admit that tomorrow, I'm not going to wake up as a new person. I'm not going to wake up with a new brain and a new body. I need
Hmm.
to plan as if I'm never going to do these things, because I won't. And that's not bad. That's just me. That's just what my brain does.
Hmm.
So I'm going to plan against it. And I hired a virtual assistant so now for $10 an hour, she and her wonderful team send out all of my outreaches for me. And yes, it's an investment, but it is something that I needed to just accept. That's me. And it was that internalized ableism still telling me I should be able to do this. And finally admitting that there's just things I'm not going to do. There's things I can't do. It was really tough for me, even me.
Hmm. So I just want to touch real quick on executive dysfunction. We've talked about it before, but it bears repeating because it is one of the worst things about being neurodivergent is the part of your brain that keeps you from sticking your hand in a fire, the part of your brain that keeps you from biting your own finger off, right? Like supposedly biting through a finger, especially at the joint, is the same as biting through a big carrot. Your jaw has the power to do it. But if you stick your finger in your mouth and think, all right, time to bite my finger off, your brain just won't let you do it. It's hardwired into your brain that knows this is going to harm me. This is going to potentially kill me. I cannot do this. I will not let my body do this. That's the same mechanism that we have that prevents us from doing seemingly ordinary things.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
see somebody with ADHD or somebody who's autistic, and we're stuck on the couch staring at TikTok, and we look like we're being lazy. But in our brain, it's just nonstop get up, go do the dishes. Go, you have to do the dishes. There's no more dishes. You have to do the dishes. I have to do the dishes over and over and over. Why am I not getting up? Why am I not doing the dishes? Why am I so bad at this? And you blame yourself nonstop.
Useless. I'm a drag. I'm a drag on my parents. I'm a drag on my wife. How do they put up with me? Why do they put up with me? I'm useless.
Hmm.
Sucks. And so, yeah, that is executive dysfunction. And some of the terms I think that we throw ourselves, towards ourselves are also what we would consider ableism microaggressions, whether you're
Hmm.
using them into like saying, I'm so lame or they're so lame. That is a microaggression, or using the R word. That is an ableist microaggression, whether you're hurling it at yourself or other people, or using these judgments, even like making plans for yourself that don't take your own disability in mind, can
Hmm.
be internalized ableism. Like, oh, we're gonna get up at 4 o'clock, we're gonna go hiking, then we're gonna go shower, then we're gonna go grocery shopping, and then we're gonna come in and we're gonna clean the house and set ourselves up for the week, not even thinking about, well, what has happened during the week before that maybe you are trying to kind of build your body back up from,
Hmm.
or not building in breaks, not building in, setting unrealistic expectations for yourself. What did you say today? Oh, you said something so brilliant today. Um, said, I didn't do, you had a medical thing that you had to do today. You didn't do it, or supposed to be done yesterday. You didn't do it yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
But you said, what did you say? Oh, you said, but I've built it into the process, is that, sometimes I'm going to forget. So if I do it today, it's okay. And it was just like a light bulb went off. Like, that is
Hmm.
so brilliant, because you've got a great system in place. That's awesome. But you've also built in this fail safe for if you forget sometimes, because you're going to forget
When?
sometimes. Yeah, when
When?
it's not a judgment, it's just a thing. And
Yeah.
that was so beautifully anti-ableist of you, that it was great. I think.
Well,
Um, do you have more on this?
the
Because I've got a whole list of other stuff to talk about that I want to make sure we get into about ableism, but I don't want to cut off your
well, just
thoughts.
part of why I have that system built, and it's my weekly hormone injection, which again, invisible disability. If I don't have that injection, my body shuts down and my brain goes to horrible depressive places.
Can I just guess that we re-record that bit, because I just somehow spilled shake on my glasses and up my nose, and it sounded like you were saying something really important. So I was like, I gotta make sure I pay attention to this, and then I got like pineapple and broccoli juice up my nose.
That's fine.
Okay, you could leave that dyspraxia moment in, but now I feel much better now that I have cleaned out.
Got all the good. Is the
I think
pineapple
I
juice like dissolving the inside of your nose?
I think I cleaned all the vegetable juice off the inside of my glasses. Yeah, it's impressive how often I can spill stuff behind my own glasses. I think that is a talent that really can't be measured but should be treasured, you know?
Mm-hmm. 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 I was just saying that it's my weekly injections, and I know about having to take regular injections of medication. Because for a good chunk of the last 5 years, I was not bedridden. Like, we're not talking Charlie in the chocolate factory, like the grandparents sitting in the bed and just being stuck in there. I was asleep for, at the worst, 22, 23 hours a day
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
years. And then a lot of the time that I was then actually awake, I was throwing up. So I looked fine. Skin was clear, hair looked great. I was losing weight, but I was not a functioning person. I couldn't. I simply couldn't. And no matter how hard I tried, or no matter what effort I put in, or what kind of scheduler I got, or how many alarms, I just didn't exist because my gastrointestinal system had basically shut down and was not absorbing calories or nutrients. And then I was on complicated meds that kind of made that worse, but kind of made it better. And to look at me, to see me for the few hours I was awake, I was video chatting with friends, I was recording things, I was able to appear happy and energetic because for that couple hours I was. And then for the rest of the day, I didn't exist. I lost just about all of my friends, lost my job, lost a bunch of my hobbies and interests and things because I just didn't exist.
So unfair to think that somebody who's sick has to look sick or disabled as we expect them to 24/7. Like, why
Hmm.
shouldn't you be able to jump online and talk to your friends for half an hour or for an hour when, that's like, why should you, of all people, not be able to do that? Because it
Hmm.
somehow invalidates all of the other stuff that's happening in your life. How does that even, like, when you say it out loud, it does not make sense. And so, but we use these judgments even as neurodivergent people, as disabled people ourselves. We are often guilty of these judgments. Oh, somebody who looks like that, they couldn't possibly have this difficulty. Somebody that happy, they can't. What do they have to be depressed about? What do they have that, we are often guilty of these judgments.
The biochemistry in my brain is what I have to be stressed about. It's got nothing to
Right.
do with what's happening outside of my brain.
Not to mention, video editing exists. So for somebody to say, oh, they had a video where they were happy for 30 minutes. Yeah, maybe it took 3 hours to get that 30 minutes, So some other things that are ableist things that you don't even think about. So using the R slur, I think, is something that we know. But even saying things like, "Oh, you're crazy," or "Oh my gosh, you're acting so bipolar today," or "Well, everybody is a little ADHD." Maybe saying, "Are
A
you off
little
your meds?"
OCD.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like, oh, I'm such a neat freak. I'm so OCD. It's like, or maybe you just don't want your elbows bumping into crap when you're typing at your desk. That's not really an OCD thing. Um,
Oh, you're
but
OCD. You have to go physically touch every knob on the burners in your stove 3 times before you can leave the house. Otherwise, the entire time that you're outside, you're thinking of the fact that you just murdered your entire family because you didn't check the burners and they're going to die in a gas explosion. Of course,
or
a little
what
OCD. It's fine.
what about sending a video of someone who says something like, oh, this autistic boy can't talk, and they went to Walmart and they organized this whole beautiful candy display, put everything in order. Isn't it inspiring what people can do when you give them the chance? Isn't that just inspiring? Isn't that okay to send? Isn't that fine?
Um, I'm not sure what we're supposed to be inspired by. Like, look, this person who can't function in day-to-day capitalist society can do a thing.
And it's
Like,
inspiring.
why is it inspiring?
We
It's
called
it's it's a nice brush of light that like, oh look, you can do a thing. That's cool, good for you. But that doesn't inspire it. It makes me angry that like that has to be inspiring.
mm-hmm.
Like that's inspiring because they can't function as a producer or laborer. But look, they could do this part. Okay.
Those inspiration videos just irk me so much, where because it's sort of like the overriding idea is this person has nothing, they are nothing, and yet, look at what one of the universe's amazing creatures can do just given the chance. And people would say that's supporting disability, supporting mental health. I don't need to actually vote in a school board election for a candidate who believes that we should continue to mainstream children with disabilities, because I support disabled people by liking and sharing memes like that. I'm never like that. Type of inspiration porn is a way that we feel better about people with disabilities or other challenges in their life cycle because they can do this. Their life really isn't that bad, you know. It also is ableist to say, well, that blind person, their senses are 10 times better. You know, they can actually hear and taste and feel 10 times more than anybody else. That's ableist too.
They can still get hit by a bus 10 times as much as anybody else because they can't frickin' see.
What about saying, oh, this person who is, they say they're blind, but they actually have some peripheral vision or they can see motion. So they're not really blind. They don't really have that full disability.
This is the same toxic individualism you get when you talk to somebody and you say that, you know, it's actually cheaper and much more effective if you just take unhoused people and house them. Because then their life starts to stabilize, because then they have something to hold on to that's their own and something to work for and something to give them hope. You don't have to do as much drugs when you have hope. And then the
It's
person always goes, well, but what happens when their apartment is better than what I have as someone who pays money? So your neighbor's house is on fire, and the fire department is pouring water on that fire. But you have a garden that hasn't been watered, and you're mad that the firefighters aren't watering your garden. If we help people, yes, if we help people, they will be helped. Things will get better. They won't be desperate. They won't be suffering. You
mm-hmm,
won't have to pretend to be some kind of Christian while actually ignoring the people your book says to help.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
we jump from we should help people to, well, how far should we take it? I don't know, Craig. Let's find out after we freaking start.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Yeah.
find out after the bases have been covered.
And again, it's things that don't always set off your radar as being as being problematic, but asking, you know, that person who's sitting in the, you know, the disabled section, oh, what is your disability? Or how did you get disabled? What's wrong with you? Um, or if somebody has a work accommodation, you know, oh, what's wrong with you? Why do you get to do this? You know, why do you get this thing and I don't get this thing? You know, those types of questions are definitely ableist. Or even things like, oh, this says don't wear perfume, you know, to this event. You know, this is a scent-free area, but I always wear mine isn't that bad. You know, my perfume isn't going to bother anybody. Those are ableist choices also, and ableist things. Um,
It's not our job to perform disability for you. The meme, of course, I jump to is, well, you don't look autistic. Oh, I am so sorry. Jeremy, would you do an autism for the lady?
mm-hmm,
You don't look disabled enough to be using that seat. Okay, and is it more important that no one get more or that everyone have enough? When you're at a function and everyone's supposed to get 2 slices of pizza, but it looks like they might run out, are you the kind of person who only takes one so you can make sure that everybody gets at least some? Or are you the kind of person who takes three because you think you won't be able to go back for seconds for more than what you actually need?
you mentioned at the top of the podcast, um, it can be difficult for people to understand that other people experience the world differently. You and I can be sitting next to each other, holding hands, and yet you could be hot while I could be cold. Actually, we'll reverse that to make that more believable. You and I could be sitting next to each other holding hands, and you could be freezing your tail off, and I could be sweating and removing as much clothing as possible because it's a billion degrees. We could be hearing different things because your hearing is more sensitive than mine. So I'm struggling to keep up with what's happening. You can hear the electricity, and that is distracting. But it can be hard for people to understand that. But it is simple to, like, when you are, say you're the person who plans the office outing, Okay, well, just look at it a couple of different ways. Like, okay, well, this thing is at 6. Well, maybe it's be great if you can come, but if you can't, we understand your work performance isn't going to be judged on it. Yes, there will be alcoholic drinks, but there's also plenty of non-alcoholic drinks. Also, this is huge for me. Going to sales events, I get to things and there would only be booze. There's nothing. They're like, oh, you can have water. Thanks. Thanks. Oh, is it the water from the ice people putting their hands in for their drinks? Is that my great? Thank you. What about people who have a physical disability? Yeah, you don't know anybody who has a physical disability, but just in case people do, make sure it's a place that people of all abilities can get into and not a place that's at the top of the steps. You don't need to know everybody's personal business in order to create a space or an environment or an event that is inclusive. You just need to do a little bit of thinking and planning ahead. But also, when people do bring their challenges or disabilities to your attention, believe them. If somebody says they need, if somebody says they're blind, your job isn't to test them to make sure that they have no vision anywhere in their field of view. That is you're not the police. You don't need to grab somebody's cane and say, oh, you don't really need this, do you? It's not your job to be the disability police. But also, we can do things like not support movies where disabled characters are played by able-bodied actors. There was a
Mm-hmm.
big thing when Sia produced a movie where her autistic main character, I mean, there's a lot of problems with the movie, but her autistic main character was played by a non-autistic actress.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of outcry, like, let's continue to support and demand that those types of disabled characters are played by actors who are disabled. When you are talking to somebody who's disabled, talk to them and not to the person who's with them. Don't assume that somebody who is disabled doesn't have autonomy or doesn't have the ability to think and speak. Just talk to that person directly. Don't assume
And never, ever, ever grab somebody's wheelchair
right,
unless they
somebody's
are rolling down
mobility.
a hill and
Yeah.
screaming. Leave them alone. They got this. In the
No.
first season of Star Trek Strange New World, there's a blind character played by a blind guy.
Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm,
me, so I watched it a bunch of times, and I started really paying attention to how that actor brought his physicality and his experience to that role. And I
mm-hmm,
realized I'd never seen a blind character played by an actually blind person. And the way he moved was completely different from
mm-hmm,
anybody else because everybody else was actually sighted and just pretended they couldn't see for an hour. But this
mm-hmm,
guy had an entirely different way he moved his body. He had a different way he held his hand so that when it bumped into the railing, they knew that there was the railing.
mm-hmm,
And it adds depth and authenticity to that part that wouldn't be there otherwise. And it
mm-hmm,
was it was great.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's little things. Like if somebody says, oh, they made such a bad decision, they must be blind. Well, the more we can pull things like that out of our own vocabularies and maybe bring to the attention of people around us who still use those types of things in their vocabularies, brings people to potentially see things as problematic that they might not have thought were problematic. Even using words like some of the words hysterical, for example, which came out of people essentially dismissing women as being women. That was a woman's craziness being hysterical. But things even like turn on the captions. If you're having a meeting or if you're watching a show, turn on the captions. Maybe somebody you don't know who can benefit from it, but turn them on anyway. Make them an option for people without people having to ask. Just do that. Make sure if you're riding public transportation, if there's a place that is designed for wheelchairs and mobility devices and somebody has a wheelchair or mobility device, move out of the way so they can use the space that is intended for them. um,
And we got the curb cut thing where having accommodations for disabilities is not just good for people with disabilities. If the
Mhm.
captions are on the movie or the meeting or whatever, well, great. Then the people with hearing difficulties can much better track, but also someone who is in a noisy place. The
Mhm.
only place that you can sit down and jump onto this meeting is a Starbucks and there's road construction going outside.
Mhm.
You can't do anything about that. You can't go flag people down and go, "Hey, could you stop with the jackhammer for 10 minutes? I got to jump on this pre-meeting meeting." It's not going to work. But now you can just read the captions. Or maybe you got to work and the audio card on your laptop is broken and it won't make sound and you just can't get the information from that meeting. Or it's got captions, then you can. You've got a ramp for disabled people with mobility devices, but then, the UPS guy shows up because it was Prime Day last week and he's got a giant thing of boxes on a hand truck and he can get in a whole lot easier. And that makes his day way better. And it makes
Mhm.
your day better because you get your stuff from Amazon Prime Day.
I always say, when I talk to companies, some of the things that they're concerned about is, oh, wait, so what you're saying is I need to find out who is autistic or find out who's gifted or find out who's ADHD and treat them differently. Like, no, what I'm saying
No.
is that I don't do meetings after 4 because of my autism and my ADHD. I just can't. My brain is a pile of mush. I just can't do it. And most of the bad things in my career have happened because I did a meeting when I shouldn't have done a meeting. But also, I have a coworker who her son is a championship taekwondo student. It's like in 8th grade, I think, and is
Competitor.
yeah, a competitor, yeah, and he's got a private taekwondo coach because that's something that you can get, and so she doesn't do meetings after 4 because she's got to get him to the special taekwondo coach. And it doesn't matter why I don't do meetings after 4, why she doesn't do meetings after 4. It's just at some point we talked to each other and said, hey, let's not do meetings after 4. Now we don't do meetings after 4. It doesn't matter why somebody has the preference. The point
Mm-hmm.
is that they do. There are things that
Mm-hmm.
make people's lives infinitely better and easier. There are little and things that we can do for each other. And they will help some people only in very small circumstances, and they will help other people in hugely important and life changing ways.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that we can do for each other just by adding a little bit of forethought into things and by removing barriers just because they're barriers, even though we don't know for who or for when. We just
Mm-hmm.
know that they're barriers. We're just going to do a little bit of extra thinking, put a little extra effort, and we're not going to do things like accuse people of faking a disability or make somebody prove they're a certain amount of disabled for us to believe them. We're not going to assume that because we've seen someone in limited circumstances do one thing that they can automatically do all of these other things that we're projecting. And we're certainly not going to use phrases like nobody could do this. Nobody could be this energetic for 30 minutes and not be able to go to work. Because anytime you're using those phrases like nobody or everybody, you're just walking into a potentially ableist trap or racist or sexist or homophobic or whatever it is, because those are all rooted in making assumptions about other people, not believing other people's experience, and just assuming that your experience of the world is the same as everybody else's and that you are the determiner. So don't do that. Just don't do that. But when it comes to internalized ableism, I think we're going to do, because we haven't gotten to it really yet, and we've been recording for a while. So I think we're going to do maybe our next episode on overcoming internalized ableism. Sounds like a good idea. But for now, yeah, don't just realize why you're telling yourself the story that you're telling yourself, or stop yourself in the moment and think, how could I make, this better? Or why am I assuming this thing about this person? And it's not always easy to change these things about yourselves, but it's absolutely possible, and it's better for you and it's better for the world. And so, let's all be a little bit less ableist going forward.
Well, I think that'll just about wrap it up for this episode of Gifted Kid, Messy Adult. Jess, where can people find out more about you?
People can find me at coachjessicamichaels.com. I am also on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out and give me a connection on LinkedIn. Happy to have you.
And if you like our show, please rate and review us. If you know anybody in your life who's a messy adult or even a gifted kid, send them a link. It's a fun show. And for any other information, please email us your questions, comments, or just outright praise to giftedkidmessyadult@gmail.com. Until next time, take care of each other out there, and don't ask if they need to be taken care of. Everyone does.
Bye.
I'm compassionate angry now.